I lost in a game of truth or dare. My boyfriend forced me to eat the food from a poor student's bowl. What are you hesitating for? Hurry up. I can't wait to see his furious look. Did I go back 10 years ago? I came in front of the poor student and put a pickled radish into my mouth. He raised his head, his eyes cold. Then, under the gaze of everyone, I put sweet and sour pork ribs, braised pork, all into his plate. This is compensation for eating your radish. I hope you don't mind. I looked at the big shot who would rule the entire technology circle in the future, smiling brightly. Hello, Shuzan at 17. I am Mengyu at 17. Just at that year you were self-abased, and just at that year I was bright. Mengyu, you lost in the truth or dare game. Hurry up and take a bite of the food from his bowl. When I opened my eyes again, my childhood sweetheart boyfriend Fu Ran was urging me with a grin to pick up food from Shuzan's bowl. The wealthy friends around me all chimed in and cheered. Yes, yes. I can't wait to see the embarrassed and awkward look of the aloof top student. Hey, what aloof top student? Just a poor wretch. Only now can he rely on his grades to speak. Once out of society, he will still work for us. Ha ha ha. Listening to these words mocking Shuzan, I sneered. Birds of a feather flock together. Since ancient times, it has always been like this. Even the most innocent students have their own circles. I am the daughter of an official, and Fu Ran is the son of a rich family. We have lived in the same villa area since childhood and are childhood sweethearts. Therefore, those who play with us are all rich and powerful. But I don't like such a circle. But I have no choice. My parents limit my friends. Except for them, no one else plays with me. 10 years ago, under their instigation, I picked up a pickled radish from Shuzan's bowl. Then, I put the chocolate I carried with me by his hand. That was the only intersection between him and me throughout my youth. At that time, he always walked with his head down. Very low, as if he would be reduced to dust in the next second. 10 years later, I had long forgotten such a person. It wasn't until at a sweet potato stand that we met again. However, by this time, he had already become a renowned technology tycoon and a new powerful figure in the wealthy and powerful circle. And I, because of my father's imprisonment and my husband's abandonment, had become the biggest joke in Jiangcheng. Why do we have to take such a long detour to buy this lousy sweet potato? The woman by the stand, carrying a new Hermes bag, complained. Oh, this is not a lousy sweet potato. This is a golden sweet potato baked by the chief's daughter. President Zhu, is this really Miss Meng? She looks like a woman in her 30s. Absolutely genuine. After her father was removed from office, Fu Ran didn't want her either. That's why she has become so down and out. That's so tragic. Hearing them say so, the woman in Hermes walked up to me on her small high heels. Boss, 10 more sweet potatoes. Bake them well. I'll buy them and distribute them to my family's nanny and driver. I smiled obsequiously. Okay, miss. You are really beautiful and kind-hearted. Hearing me call her miss, she was even happier. 10 more. The man on the other side held her back. Why are you buying so many? You can't finish them. She pursed her lips in disgust. How could I eat such food for lower-class people? Food for lower-class people. In the past, I always liked to buy things from roadside stalls to feed stray cats, but I never took a bite myself. At that moment, the boomerang of my youth hit me right between the eyes. I pursed my lips tightly and sped up my flipping and roasting. Let me help you. When Shuzan in a suit and leather shoes appeared in front of me, I was completely stunned. He took me, who had no home to go back to his private villa. There was no imprisonment, no coercion, and nothing to do with lust. He just gave me a place to stay like a friend and helped me find a decent job. I was very grateful to him and always thought about how to repay him. But I didn't know what to do. On several nights, when I went out to pour water, I would see Shuzan standing in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling window, a lit cigarette between his fair fingers. The cool moonlight spread all over the ground. He was surrounded by a coldness and was swallowed by loneliness. Many times, I wanted to hug him from behind and comfort him. But I had no position and no right. Some time passed. He really had no ulterior motives towards me. He didn't lack anything either. Maybe taking me home was just because he felt sorry for me. Just like I used to love picking up stray cats and dogs by the roadside and taking them home. Until he fell ill from overwork and got cancer. He still remembered my birthday and insisted on having me make a wish and blow out candles in front of his hospital bed. He said that a princess's birthday must have a sense of ceremony. Yes, later, he always liked to call me princess. Because of the torture of the disease, he had become so thin that his eye sockets were sunken and he was almost unrecognizable. Even the hand that inserted the candles for me was also pale, with protruding wrist bones. He forced a smile at me. Princess, PPY birthday. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's. I had to put my ear close to his mouth to hear this sentence clearly. I looked at him with tears in my eyes, but he kept staring at me and smiling. Quick, blow out the candles. His eyes looking at me seemed as if he wanted to forever fix my face in his mind. Smiling and smiling, he closed his eyes. The hand holding mine instantly lost strength and hung by the bedside. I felt the taste of sadness, like trees and grass leaves soaked by heavy rain, so damp that it made my whole body ache. I trembled and blew out the candles, closed my eyes and made a wish. God, my birthday wish at 27 is to go back to 17. Unexpectedly, my birthday wish really came true. When I opened my eyes again, the fair-weather friends around me were pushing me. Miss Meng, what are you hesitating for? Hurry up. I can't wait to see his furious look. They looked in Shuzan's direction and smiled maliciously. 17-year-old Shuzan was sitting in the corner eating. The light was dim and his back was lonely. Just like him at 27. Whether he is poor or extremely wealthy, he always takes care of himself. Seeing him young and healthy again, my eyes reddened. I carried my dinner plate and walked boldly towards Shuzan, who was eating the free pickled vegetables in the cafeteria. He saw that I wanted to sit beside him. In the already narrow space, he moved inwards again. On the huge dinner plate, except for rice, there were pickled radishes and pickled cabbages, and a bowl of mustard soup without any oil. At that moment, I only felt a piercing pain spreading throughout my body. After he got cancer, he could have tried harder through chemotherapy. But the doctor said that his constitution was too poor. Because of malnutrition in his youth, he had developed a root cause of illness. In the end, he didn't even survive the second round of chemotherapy. Looking at him, who was sallow and emaciated, I felt a lump in my throat. Can you let me eat? I tried hard to control my emotions, but still couldn't finish my sentence. Presumably now he must think I am a lunatic. I adjusted my emotions and didn't speak anymore. Directly, in his astonished gaze, I took a piece of radish and put it in my mouth. It was salty and astringent, tasting like chewing wax. Shuzan, I'm sorry, I'm late. When I looked up, I only saw his cold expression. Classmate, you can get pickled radishes for free over there. Please don't play such a boring joke. At this time, many students in the cafeteria had stopped eating and were looking over here. The discussions were very loud. Especially at the table in front of us, the discussions were the loudest. Ha, Miss Meng is really amazing. She dares to provoke the aloof top student. Only your high school classmates call him the top student. His nickname in primary and junior high school was Disaster Star. Why is he called the Disaster Star? Isn't it because he killed his own parents and also killed? When hearing the words Disaster Star, he clenched his fist, and blue veins protruded on his fair skin. Before the female classmate at the front table finished speaking, I stood up. Classmate, didn't your parents teach you not to talk about your classmates behind their backs? After saying that, I was still not satisfied and added another sentence. You have parents, but it seems to me that you don't have much upbringing either. The girl I confronted didn't dare to provoke me and only dared to mutter in a low voice, is she on the wrong medicine? Didn't she used to tease Shuzan? I was even angrier. One of my feet had already stepped out, planning to have a good talk with her. There was a cold touch on my hand. It was Shuzan who pulled me. Sit down and eat. His tone was flat and his expression had returned to calm. After sitting down, under the gaze of everyone, I put all the sweet and sour pork ribs and braised pork in my bowl into his plate. I was full of flattery. This is compensation for eating your radish. I hope you don't mind. Oh, by the way, although we have been classmates for so long, it seems we haven't formally met. Hello, Shuzan at 17. I am Meng Yu at 17. I raised a bright smile and extended a friendly hand towards him. My words came out like a barrage. He stared blankly at my mouth opening and closing. I'm full. After a silence for a while, he left after throwing out these 4 words, leaving me stunned in place. And the chocolate that I hadn't had time to give out and was almost crushed by me. In my previous life, although I thought it was not good to do so, I still listened to Fu Ran and took a lot of dishes from Shuzan's bowl. Because of disgust, I didn't take a bite after taking them. Later, out of guilt, when I left, I gave him a chocolate. Fu Ran also mocked that it would be the best thing Shuzan had ever eaten in his life. But 10 years later, when I was tidying up Shuzan's study, I saw that chocolate again on his desk. Shuzan put it in an exquisite glass cover and input special gas so that it would never decay. At that moment, countless thoughts flashed through my mind, and all kinds of emotions surged. The chocolate in the palm of my hand let me glimpse the secret he hid. But now the social status and huge gap made me suppress all my thoughts. Besides, can just a chocolate really explain anything? I am no longer a young lady. What qualifications do I have to walk side by side with him? Ha ha ha, Meng Yu, you are too mean. Pour your eaten food to the disaster star. When it comes to insulting people, it's still you, Missy, who knows how. Fu Ran sat down beside me with a plop. I looked at him in surprise. It turned out that in their eyes, my actions just now were an insult to Shuzan. Then, does Shuzan think so too? Ah, I'm such an idiot. All I was thinking about was to let him eat better, but the way I expressed it was so uncomfortable. Pei Pei sat on the other side and said slowly, but why did you help that disaster star just now? Those girls were right. Shuzan killed his own parents and also killed his own younger sister. If you get close to him, he will kill you sooner or later. Pei Pei is also in our circle. He is the son of the school principal and wields great power in the school. He has a violent temper and loves to bully his classmates from time to time, euphemistically calling it playing a little game with them. Later, after my family declined, Fu Ran's attitude towards me took a complete turn overnight. He began to urge me to take the initiative to approach and please Pei Pei, just to get a big order. But I still foolishly had illusions about them. After all, we have been friends for so many years. It wasn't until that outing when the two families were together. Fu Ran entered the next room, and Pei Pei walked into my room. Only then did I realize that our circle had long been completely rotten. I gave Pei Pei a disdainful look and retorted angrily, so superstitious? Then why do you always do such heartless and despicable things? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning one day? Pei Pei's face instantly turned green. Meng Yu, what did you say? Say it again if you have the guts. Seeing that we were on the verge of a confrontation, Fu Ran quickly pulled me away and tried to smooth things over. No, young Master Pei. She's lost her mind today. Don't take it to heart. I threw off his disgusting dirty hand. You're not any better. Rotten person. Both of them were stunned by my sharp insults. They seemed not to understand how I suddenly seemed like a different person today. Before they could react, I quickly returned to the classroom. I really didn't want to stay in this completely rotten circle for even a moment longer. When I returned to the classroom, the class bell had already rung. There was no way. I could only explain to Shuzan after class that I didn't mean to put the eaten food into his bowl. This period was my most hated math class. During class, although I didn't have much intention to study, I still forced myself to listen carefully. In my previous life, it was because of my uneven grades that I didn't get into a good university. After graduating from college in a muddled way, I got married to Fu Ran. I was supported by my father in the first half of my life and by my husband in the second half. People are ruined like this. So after getting out of that circle, because I had no special skills and no outstanding educational background, I was reduced to selling sweet potatoes. Since God has given me another chance, I must seize it well. I stared wide-eyed and listened for half a class. Unfortunately, friends will leave you. Husbands will betray you. Only math won't. Because if you don't understand math, you just don't. Listening to math class is basically like listening to heavenly scriptures. I sighed and looked around. My eyes fixed on the left oblique direction. That strange yet familiar figure was sitting upright, intently looking at the blackboard and occasionally calculating on the white paper. He was slender, with a thin and pale face, lacking in vitality. There was an indelible light blue tinge hidden between his eyebrows. Compared to him 10 years later who had a powerful aura, now he had a bit more greenness and inferiority. Meng Yu. What are you looking at again? Stand up and tell me. because I was too absorbed in looking at Shuzan and was accidentally caught by the old math teacher. I stood up calmly and replied with a grin, I'm looking at Shuzan. The crowd was in an uproar. Only Shuzan was still quietly doing the problems, but his fair earlobes visibly turned red. I was already bad at math, and this bold statement made the old teacher so angry that he stomped his feet. Come on, tell me. What are you looking at him for? If you can't explain it clearly today, you can't leave class. I said with a smile, because he's good looking. As soon as these words came out, the whole class was in an uproar. As expected, I was asked to leave the classroom. But because of my father's identity, soon another teacher took me to the office to enjoy the air conditioning. After class, I couldn't wait to find Shuzan and explain to him about the meal. He was lowering his head and doing problems. He didn't look at me but just replied faintly, it's okay. I didn't think that way. I breathed a sigh of relief. It's good that you didn't misunderstand me. Unexpectedly easy to get along with. Why did I always think he was cold and difficult to deal with in the past? Seeing that he was still doing problems, I was embarrassed to disturb him anymore. I put the chocolate in my hand by his side, bent down, and smiled at him. This is my favorite chocolate. It's for you. He glanced at it and his gaze returned to the book. Thank you. I don't eat it. It's very delicious. Really? Try it. I directly peeled off the aluminum foil on the outside of the chocolate and stuffed it into his mouth. My fingertip brushed across his lips, and a tingling sensation flowed from my finger to my whole body. He looked at me in shock. I was also stunned. Time seemed to freeze. He even forgot to chew. My face was extremely hot. But since things had come to this, I had to bite the bullet and say, it's delicious, right? I didn't lie to you. I'll bring you some every day from now on. After saying that, I ran away quickly. After school, I was blocked by Fu Ran on my way home. I frowned and looked at him. What's the matter? He put his hands on his chest, looking displeased. What's wrong with you today? Why are you so nice to that disaster star? I want to. Mind your own business. He pressed my shoulder. Today, you offended Pei Pei for Shuzan. Shuzan will become his next game target. No. Is he crazy? If he has the guts, come at me. As soon as I heard about Shuzan, I got anxious. Fu Ran's eyes were dark. He pinched my chin and said word by word, Meng Yu, could it be that you have fallen in love with this kind of trash? I curled my lip in disdain. If I don't love him, do I love a scumbag like you? Meng Yu. He was completely enraged by me. Angrily, he pushed me against the wall and kissed me hard. Past memories instantly surfaced in my mind. I was so disgusted that I dry heaved. I pushed him away forcefully and slapped him backhandedly. Fu Ran, what are you doing? He loomed over me and used his strength advantage to firmly confine me between his arms. What am I doing? I already said that the woman you saw that day is my sister. You are just deliberately using Shuzan to provoke me, right? Wow, this scumbag. I'm really speechless. Just as I was about to retort and scold him to death, my peripheral vision caught a figure. Shuzan. He was holding a trash can and walking in the direction of the classroom. When passing by here, his gaze fell on me and Fu Ran. In just a second, he casually shifted his gaze away and continued walking. My chest felt stuffy and painful. So, wouldn't he misunderstand again that I approached him just to anger Fu Ran? I seized the opportunity and gave Fu Ran a hard blow to his vulnerable spot. Fu Ran bent over in pain. If you're sick, go see a doctor, okay? After throwing out this sentence, I chased after Shuzan. Shuzan. After running for a long time, I finally caught up with him. I grabbed his sleeve and explained, I don't like Fu Ran. He's a scumbag. Just now he forced me. Shuzan's footsteps continued. He had long legs. His fast walk was equivalent to my trot. While walking quickly, he replied, Miss Meng, I'm not interested in the things between you two lovers. You don't need to tell me. He's not my boyfriend. But then thinking that it seemed we hadn't officially broken up yet, I added, although we haven't broken up yet, but we will soon. He stopped and looked at me seriously and said, Meng Yu, I have no interest and no time to become the plaything of you rich people. Please don't talk to me anymore in the future. Thank you. For the last two words, he almost spat them out through gritted teeth. After saying that, he left without looking back. His words were like a basin of cold water, drenching me from head to toe. I stood there for a while and only felt that the setting sun at this time was extremely dazzling. Why are there always so many misunderstandings between us and always missing each other? It's okay, it's okay. I comforted myself. Now I am the chief's daughter. So what if I am rejected? I followed him again. But this time, it provoked his roar, "Don't follow me. Get lost." 10 years later, back to 10 years ago. This is the first time he has been so fierce to me in all the time we have spent together. Looking at the fierce him, I was at a loss for a while. After a while, I forced a smile at him, then goodbye for now. We'll see each other tomorrow. Turning my back, my eyes were moist and my heart was extremely clogged. For several days in a row, I put chocolates on his desk. Of course, he threw them all into the trash can. I stared at the chocolates in the trash can for a long time. Disappointment, sadness, powerlessness. These emotions rushed in like seawater and wrapped me up. It's okay, it's okay. Misunderstandings will always have a way to be resolved. Because Pei announced that Shuzan was the next target of the game, the whole class began to not cooperate with Shuzan's work as the math class representative. When Shuzan went to collect homework, there were always people who deliberately stepped on the homework and made him bend down to pick it up. Then I would take the initiative to help him collect it. When I put the collected homework on his desk again, he finally spoke, "Classmate Meng, I have resigned as the class representative. Please don't approach me anymore in the future." The small flame that had just reignited in me was extinguished. After a few seconds of silence, I stubbornly spoke again. "Why?" He looked up at me. Those silent eyes were extremely indifferent. The words spat out from his thin lips were as cold as ice, "Because I hate you." I don't know how I returned to my seat. That whole day, I was in a daze. I don't understand why. Why is it still so difficult even after going back to 10 years ago? God, please tell me, what should I do next? Meng Yu, come to my office. When I was feeling depressed, the appearance of the class teacher made my eyes light up. The class teacher is a young female teacher. My mother always asks her to take care of me by giving her designer bags. She is honest and upright and entered this profession with a teacher's dream. She always makes me take these bags back home. But I know that in this world, there is no one who cannot be corrupted. You think she is upright and honest just because the chips you offer are not what she wants. Absolute power leads to absolute corruption. This time, I no longer obediently take back the bag. Instead, I turned around and closed the office door. Then I gently pushed back the Chanel bag she handed over. I said with a smile, "Teacher Chen, your bag is really beautiful." I moved my chair closer to her. In her astonished gaze, I continued, "Teacher Chen, I heard that your husband and child have always been in Jincheng. It would be great if his job could be transferred to Hangcheng." When this matter was mentioned, her eyes lit up. I lowered my voice and said in a volume that only the two of us could hear, "My father has a comrade in arms who is the top leader of the personnel department in Hangcheng." Teacher Chen thought for a while, took the bag back again, and said gently to me, "This bag was recommended by your mother for me to buy. It is indeed beautiful." Teacher Chen is very efficient. Before the class bell rang, I had already become Shuzan's desk mate. And Fu Ran's seat was extremely far away from us. He was so angry that he stomped his feet, but there was nothing he could do. Under the coercion and inducement of the class teacher, Shuzan could only put aside his grievances with me for the time being and was forced to become my little math teacher. Shuzan taught perfunctorily, but I learned extremely seriously. Reborn in this life, I really don't want to be a useless person who can only be supported by others again. However, the subject of mathematics is really disgusting. Those who are awesome are really awesome. For example, Shuzan gets full marks every time. Those who are not good are really not good. For example, I even got single digits in the exam. I was once again stumped by the easy question in Shuzan's mouth. This type of question has been taught twice by old man Wang and 3 times by me. If you still can't do it, I advise you to give up mathematics. The way he looked at me was as if he was looking at an idiot. A burst of anger rushed to my head. "Shuzan, I'm angry. Don't underestimate people. I must solve this question today." Half an hour later, Shuzan leaned over. Fert, in your anger, you just wrote a solution. Shuzan's eyes curved, and suddenly there was a sparkle. This is. I saw him smile for the first time. Time seemed to freeze. My mind went blank, and I stared at him stupidly. Perhaps my gaze was too intense, and he looked over. At the moment of eye contact, I guiltily looked away and said awkwardly, "It is said that people can do anything when they are desperate. I don't think it works for mathematics." As soon as I finished speaking, Shuzan lowered his head and laughed until his ears turned red. Ah. Is the laughing point so low? Meng Yu. Is this your reason for breaking up with me? Fu ran angrily through all the books on my desk to the ground. His voice was very loud, and everyone else in the library immediately looked over. I glanced at him and said in a sharp tone, "What? Haven't you recovered from your illness yet? Did the hospital release you?" Hearing me say this, he was so angry that he started yelling again, and other students couldn't study in peace. Shuzan on the side spoke up to stop him. "Classmate Fu, this is a place for learning. If you don't want to study, please go out." "Hey, learning? Do you think that just because you can read some books, you can steal my girlfriend and beat me? My family's efforts for several generations. How could it lose to your 10 years of hard study? In the future, you will still work for me." Again, this brainless man has started his arrogant speech again. I stood up and looked at him and said word by word, 10 years of hard study is to take on your 3 generations of doing business. A sneer rose at the corner of his mouth. "Oh? So, you are determined to be with this poor wretch?" I curled my lip in disdain. "It's so ridiculous. What I do has nothing to do with you. Hashtag 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 hashtag. What? Do you think the injury you suffered last time wasn't enough? Do you want to be sterilized this time? I stared at him provocatively and said this maliciously. Thinking of the pain from last time, he immediately became cowardly. "Meng Yu, I'll tell your parents. Just you wait." Ha ha, extremely ridiculous. After throwing out this sentence, he left with his tail between his legs. I picked up the books on the ground and resumed my study state. When Shuzan wanted to say something to me, I spoke first. "The thing last time was that you misunderstood me. I didn't use you as an excuse to anger him. I have nothing to do with him anymore." Last time, he himself was cornered and said those words. He kissed me. I was forced by him. I even wanted to call the police and accuse him of harassment. So, please believe me. I really am not. I was eager to clear up the misunderstanding from last time and spoke incoherently. But before I could finish speaking, he interrupted me. "I believe you." Ah? No need to explain. I believe you. Really? The moon in my heart seemed to rise again, and the stars also brightened. Millimeter. Shuzan seemed to think of something again. After hesitating for a long time, he still asked me, "But why are you so harsh to Fu Ran?" Memories of being driven out of home in my previous life and being stripped naked, insulted, beaten and scolded by him in the snow welled up in my mind. Being treated like this by the person I loved, from school uniforms to wedding dresses, I almost wanted to die at that time. I endured the sadness and replied. "Because he made my life like hell." Ah? Shuzan was a little surprised. But I couldn't and didn't want him to know these humiliating experiences. I could only change the subject with a laugh. "And also because the person I really like is you." Now Shuzan really didn't ask any more questions and blushed and lowered his head to do problems. Seeing that he didn't seem to believe me, on a whim, I took his hand and confessed seriously. "Shuzan, life is short. Let me accompany you from now on, okay?" He was stunned for a few seconds, quickly pulled back his hand, and even his neck turned extremely red. "You solve this problem first. Then my life will be less bitter." I regained my fighting spirit and started doing problems vigorously. The relationship between me and Shuzan eased. He taught me mathematics every day, and I brought him food every day. Auntie, in the blue insulated lunchbox, make more sweet and sour pork ribs. Sweeter. And more rice too. It has to be twice as much as mine. Aunt Jong, the nanny, nodded with a smile. Okay. It seems that young Master Fu has a sweet tooth. Boys at this age eat the most. Auntie will pack more for him. This is not for Fu Ran. As for him, if he eats even a grain of my rice, I will call the police. Then who is it for? Oh, miss, don't worry. I won't be talkative. I hugged her waist and acted coquettishly. Hee, Aunt Jong is the best. There should also be twice as much bird's nest in the blue insulated lunchbox. He studies very hard and needs more nourishment. Oh, for a big boy, don't let him eat bird's nest with you. Auntie made him 8 treasure tea with high-quality ginseng. My mouth was sweeter than honey. Aunt Jong, you are so understanding. The food you make is so delicious. I love you so much. You are always so naughty. Go to school quickly. Under my careful feeding, Shuzan's complexion visibly improved. He no longer had to go to the cafeteria to eat bland and oily-free food. Gradually, he finally gained some weight and was no longer so thin that he could be blown down by a gust of wind. With a piece of chocolate and a glass of milk every day, I unwaveringly supervised him to finish eating. His academic performance was even more astonishing. Before the college entrance examination, many famous schools had already extended olive branches to him. With his tutoring in mathematics, my math grades began to improve. Now, he not only tutors me in mathematics but also in my other subjects. With his support and my own desperate efforts, my grades soared. In this life, I want to carve out a broad road by myself. Because I know that my father's downfall is already inevitable. Rome wasn't built in a day. As early as when I was a child, the bomb had already been planted. What I can do is to make myself strong. Strong enough that 10 years later, without relying on anyone, I am also qualified to stand side by side with Shuzan. Even if the mountains and rivers change, even if the stars shift. In a few years, the world will be ours. Shuzan, I not only want us to meet at the peak. I also want to be the one who accompanies you during the climb. Forever. In this life, with my efforts. A seed of love has quietly sprouted in our hearts. We understand each other without words. Since that misunderstanding was resolved, he started calling me princess again. I asked him, why do you always like to call me princess? After recalling seriously, he said, the day you gave me sweet and sour pork ribs and took the initiative to be friendly to me, you were like a princess who saves the world from hardships. Clearly high above, yet extremely kind. I smiled brightly. But there was a bit of confusion in my heart. In my previous life, clearly I didn't take the initiative to be friendly to him. Why did he still call me princess later? However, the answer is no longer important. Because, in this long journey of the mortal world, I will accompany you. On the day when the independent admissions examination of University A ended. Just when I went to the bathroom for a while, Shuzan disappeared. A bad premonition welled up in my heart. Sure enough, Fu Ran found Pei Pei and used the lowest and dirtiest means to bully Shuzan. During this time, because I was always by Shuzan's side, Pei Pei couldn't find an opportunity to attack him. This time, they pulled him into an alley beside the school. When I arrived, several people were holding Shuzan. Fu Ran and Pei Pei were taking turns hitting him. Shuzan's face was distorted. He covered his abdomen with his hands and fell to the ground in pain. His breathing was rapid and unstable, and cold sweat oozed from his forehead. But he always clenched his teeth and wouldn't let himself make a sound of groaning. Pei Pei spat. Damn it. So stubborn? Won't beg for mercy even when dying? Just as his fist was about to land on Shuzan again, I took out my phone and made a call. Hearing the sound, Pei Pei turned around to look at me and walked towards me maliciously. What? Miss Meng is going to call the police? I clenched my fist and glared back at him without fear. He arrogantly continued, ha, call the police? Doesn't Miss Meng know what my uncle does in the police station? As he spoke, he was about to snatch my phone. I immediately spoke with a crying voice, hello, Dad. I am now in the alley beside the school. Come and save me quickly. Hearing this, Pei Pei was a little panicked. Fu Ran, didn't you say her father went to Beijing? I threatened, Even if he went to Beijing, dare you touch me? Fu ran, doesn't your family's company want to go public anymore? Just at this moment, the harsh sound of police sirens was getting closer and closer to us. The people on the opposite side panicked at once and fled in all directions. I helped Shuzan up and took him home. Along the way, looking at his wounds, I felt sad and guilty. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't be targeted by those two scumbags. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't be injured today. Princess. Shuzan interrupted my ramblings and murmurs. Huh? This is the 100th time you've said sorry. Ah, sorry. Am I too annoying? The 101st time. I didn't expect that Shuzan actually lived in the medical compound where I lived when I was a child. The once bustling medical compound is now dilapidated and there are not many households living there anymore. Shuzan's home is very old but very clean. After knocking on the door, it was Shuzan's grandma who opened the door for us. Grandma had white hair on her temples. Her vision was a bit blurry and her movements were inconvenient. But Grandma still knew that he was injured and kept questioning him if he had fought with someone. Shuzan stammered and couldn't answer. I took the initiative to explain to Grandma, Grandma, I am Meng Yu, Shuzan's desk mate. You don't know. Today I was bullied by a few hooligans. It was Shuzan who saved me. But when he saved me, he was also injured. Grandma, he is my big hero. After hearing this, Grandma first praised Shuzan well. Then she ranted and said she would tell the teacher and seek justice for us. Under my persuasion, she was willing to temporarily give up reporting and go and cook noodles for us first. After coming to Shuzan's bedroom, I started to apply medicine to his wounds. Before I finished, his expression suddenly distorted. You play on the computer for a while. I'll go to the bathroom first. After throwing out this sentence, he left, leaving me bored. At this time, a folder on the old-fashioned computer that was turned on attracted my attention. I clicked it open and found that it needed a password. The stars in the sky blink. Seeing this sentence, my hand unconsciously typed a few words on the keyboard. There is a doll by the roadside. It was actually unlocked successfully. As if pressing the autoplay button. The song in my mind was recited again by a gentle female voice, the stars in the sky blink. There is a doll by the roadside. Doll, doll. Why don't you go home? Is it because you have no home? No father and mother? Doll, don't be afraid. Let me lend you half of my mother. And have a home with you. Let me lend you half of my father. And have a home with you. The folder is full of diaries of Shuzan's mother. December 25, 1996. Today, I was found to be pregnant and was also promoted to chief physician. I have worked hard for so many years and finally got a good reward. All this good luck is brought by you, my baby. You are really Mom's lucky star. Well, your nickname will be Little Lucky Star. May 20, 1997. Just now at work, my senior sister personally examined me. My senior sister secretly told me that this is a little boy. Shu Qiong asked me what name to give the child. The nickname is Lucky Star. Maybe the big name will be Shu Wuyu. Shu Wuyu, Shu Wuyu, wishing him a life without worry. Wuyu, Mom and Dad will love you well. March 17, 2002. My Wuyu really likes eating candied haws. Just like his dad, he is so fond of sweets. I was promoted to chief physician. But this still needs to thank my senior sister for her promotion. It turns out that my senior sister's husband is so powerful. At such a young age, he is already such a high-ranking official. But my senior sister always goes on the operating table after drinking. No matter how much I persuade her, she won't listen. What should I do? I'm really worried that she will have an accident. However, think of something happy. Shu Qiong's paintings are also selling better and better. Everything in the family is going in a good direction. The family savings are also increasing. Wuyu keeps shouting for a younger brother or sister every day. It's not really okay. I don't know when Shuzan sat beside me. I was startled and quickly wiped away my tears. But before I could explain and apologize, he spoke first. It turns out that he, like me, once lived in an extremely happy family. His mother is a doctor and his father is a painter. The family conditions are excellent, and he is doted on by everyone. Until his mother passed away. All children hope that their parents love each other, but only I don't want that. Since the year my mother left, my birthday wish every year is that my father will stop loving my mother. Unfortunately, God didn't hear it. He will always love Mom and be willing to give up me and his life for her. When Shuzan said this, he was very calm. But my tears fell again. Shuzan's mother died of difficult labor due to a medical accident during premature delivery. But his father blamed all this on Shuzan. Disaster star. You know, everyone calls me that. Others can angrily denounce their nicknames and think they are humiliating. But I can't, because this nickname was given by my father. My dad said that I am a disaster star and killed my mother and sister. I used to be called Shu Wuyu. It was he who changed my name to Shuzan. He said that I killed my mother and also killed my sister. How could I be without worry all my life? Shuzan's eyes looked out of the window emptily. His tone was so flat as if he were talking about someone else's affairs. Dad is right. Because it was my fault that Mom had premature delivery. It was I who insisted on eating candied haws in the middle of the night. At that time, many stores were closed. Mom, who was pregnant with my sister, crossed several streets to buy it. On the way back, she had low blood sugar. At this point, he suddenly stopped as if there was a mouthful of bran stuck in his throat. After a long time, he spoke again. In fact, there was still a chance when she was sent to the hospital. Unfortunately, the person who operated on her was her senior sister who liked to go on the operating table after drinking. At this moment, time seemed to freeze. My ears were buzzing and my mind went blank. Suddenly, I couldn't hear anything. I don't know how I left Shuzan's home. I walked on the street in a daze. It wasn't until the cold wind was piercing that I suddenly woke up. In fact, Shuzan's mother's senior sister is my mother. 10 years later, my father was removed from office because he was my mother's protector. In my memory, my mother was under too much pressure, so she always drank. No one's persuasion was useful. Gradually, drinking too much alcohol turned into alcoholism. Operating after drinking will inevitably lead to many medical accidents, but every time my father suppressed them. It wasn't until an accident was fermented by public opinion and my father couldn't suppress it anymore that the truth finally came out. Patients who had been hurt in the past also stood up together. In the end, my mother was dismissed by the hospital, but my father still used his last energy to protect her. And my father himself took all the blame and was sentenced. It turns out that the bomb planted by my parents is earlier and more dangerous than I imagined. This bomb not only destroyed me 10 years later but also blew me to pieces now. I suddenly seemed to understand why I could unlock that password. The gentle and beautiful aunt in my memory who would sing nursery rhymes to comfort me when my mother was drunk is Shuzan's mother. Fate is teasing people. At this moment, I finally understand what the chocolate hidden by Shuzan 10 years later means. It is his surging love that is suppressed. In the future, he will be so powerful. How could he not know our relationship? So he has always been with me in the name of a friend. So what he gave me is just enough for my basic life. I stood by the river. The wind in winter was so cold that it penetrated to the bone. The snow was getting heavier and heavier, as thick as goose feathers. I stretched out my hand and a silver flower fell into my palm. My past and present lives flashed before my eyes like scenes in a panorama. I stood for a long, long time, so long that I lost consciousness. Shuzan, God is willing to give us another chance. It shows that our fate is predestined. Whether you are Shuzan or Shu Wuyu, you are the love of my life that Mengyu has determined in this life. We will eventually embrace and cry in this world full of pain and love. If it is a destined relationship, I am willing to spend my life with you. If it is an evil relationship, I will go to the underworld with you. Mengyu. I looked in the direction of the sound. At the end of the long street, dusk was vast. Shuzan stood at that end, his posture straight. My tears instantly burst the dam. He walked towards me, step by step. What are you doing here alone? I have been looking for you for a long time. My throat was so hoarse that I could hardly make a sound. Why are you here? When you went out, it was as if your soul had been taken away. Later, the more I thought about it, the more something seemed wrong, so I came out to look for you. Shuzan took off his scarf and wrapped it around my neck. I immediately felt warm all over. I looked at him, and my vision became more and more blurred. Shuzan, you are the person I would give up the whole world to be with. Even if I am spurned by thousands of people. I still decide to give it a try. Even if I can only be a small page in your story from now on. Even if I can only be a small wave in the long river of your life. I still want to tell you. I took a deep breath, looked into his eyes seriously, and slowly said, Shuzan, do you know why I could unlock that password? He looked back at me and didn't answer. It's because that nursery rhyme was taught to me by your mother. Hearing the word, mother, his eyes lit up. I continued, and my mother is the senior sister mentioned in your mother's diary. His pupils constricted suddenly and his face turned extremely pale. For a long time, he stood there motionless, like a puppet on strings. His reaction was expected. Time passed minute by minute. Until we were both covered with a layer of heavy snow, I slowly said, let's go home. Shuzan, goodbye. Turning around, I cried so hard that I couldn't make a sound. Today is my 17th birthday. Shuzan is not by my side. I made a wish to the heavy snow, God, my birthday wish at 17 is that Shuzan will be safe and healthy all his life. In the following days, Shuzan and I seemed to return to the initial state again. I no longer have the face to stick to him actively. Although I still put chocolates on his desk every day, I never saw him eat them again, nor did I see him throw them away. However, it is already a good result that he is still willing to be my desk mate. I no longer expect anything else. Soon, winter passed and spring came. The college entrance examination was approaching, and time became tense. In this life, because I worked desperately hard, my grades kept rising. Although learning mathematics was still difficult. Fortunately, I knew Shuzan's habit. He would mark the predicted major questions in red. I could peek. His notebook was also sorted into various methods and error-prone points. The handwriting was neat and the organization was clear. Moreover, he never took the notebook home, which made it easy for me to get the treasure of the top student. After my shortcomings were overcome, my overall ranking got closer and closer to Shuzan's. As hibiscus bloomed, the midsummer was long. I stepped into the college entrance examination room again. After the college entrance examination results came out, I was the top in the school. Because Shuzan's results couldn't be checked. Tsinghua University and Peking University couldn't reach him by phone and directly came to the school to recruit him. Later, I used the family's money and, in the identity of Aunt Zhong the nanny, gave Shuzan 1 million in the name of sponsoring the top scorer. In the future, he will need this sum of money as startup capital. In this life, I don't want him to work so hard again and save up this money bit by exhausting his body. I was whipped by my father until I was covered with scars because of this. Because I told him that this 1 million was taken by me to gamble and was gambled away by me. In those days, I was beaten so badly that I couldn't get out of bed. But after all, I am his own daughter. After warning me repeatedly not to gamble again, he let me be free. On the day of the graduation dinner, I drank several bottles of wine. Liquor gives courage to cowards. I came downstairs to Shuzan's house again. He came downstairs. After seeing me, there was a glimmer in his eyes, but he didn't speak for a long time. Dark clouds were gathering, and the sky was torn by a dazzling light. Looking at this extremely familiar face, I felt a little like crying. Shuzan, I know you can't accept me, but it doesn't matter. Can you let me finish what I want to say? Seeing me with tears in my eyes, he could only nod. Shuzan, in the days to come, you must exercise well. Don't eat pickles and fermented bean curd every day anymore. You need to strengthen your nutrition. Also, no matter how busy you are with your studies and career in the future, you must sleep well. Of course, there is one most important thing. After you graduate from college, you must have a physical examination of your liver seriously every year. You must. The more I said, the more anxious and excited I became. But before I could finish speaking, he interrupted me again. Meng Yu. Huh? Let's go to hell together. His voice was clear and cold. I didn't react for a moment. I widened my eyes. The sudden warmth on my lips made my brain freeze for a few seconds. After realizing it, I hugged him tightly. Big raindrops fell. Soon, the rain curtain was like a woven fabric, and the heavy rain was pouring down. Princess, it's raining. His voice was right by my ear. Looking at the city under the hazy water vapor, I felt as if I were dreaming. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. But I didn't want to let go no matter what. Because it took me a great deal of effort and all the luck in my life to be able to hug you so completely. 10 years later. My parents still had the same ending. During these 10 years, no matter how much I persuaded, I couldn't change the fact that my mother was an alcoholic. Of course, I also couldn't change the fact that my father was going further and further astray. This is also within my expectation, because I have seen his confession after being arrested. In the video, I didn't see his heart-wrenching remorse. I only saw his calmness of accepting defeat. So no matter how many lifetimes I relive, I can't change this predetermined ending. Shuzan still got cancer. But fortunately, it was discovered early this time. Coupled with my meticulous care during these 10 years. Also, every day under my supervision, he exercises seriously and goes to bed early and gets up early. His body withstood the operation of removing part of the liver. Because of his good physical fitness, he recovered quickly. However, the doctor said that there is a possibility of recurrence. So live a regular life and keep a happy mood. I smiled confidently. With me here, there will be no chance for cancer cells. Shuzan, the hardships of fate have pushed you to the edge of a cliff. Then let me sit down with you by this cliff and enjoy the flowing mists and clouds together. From now on, we will depend on each other in life and death.